I'm going to cross-reference this just to make sure it's not, just so we can be confident on its legitimacy. So, US police trainers with far-right ties are teaching hundreds of cops. So this is particularly about somebody called Richard Whitehead, who is actually, now he's either based in Idaho or from Idaho, but it says here he's teaching in Texas, so hang on. One police instructor who's taught 560 officers in recent years has joined one extremist group and supported other far-right movements. Others have echoed QAnon and other fringe conspiracy theories on social media, a Reuters examination found. So this is in May 2022, this was written. Shutting out the potential neighbours. This story contains offensive language. On social media, Richard Whitehead is a warrior for the American right. He has praised extremist groups. He has called for public executions of government officials he sees as disloyal to former President Donald Trump. In a post in 2020, he urged law enforcement officers to disobey COVID-19 public health orders from tyrannical governors, adding, "We are on the brink of civil war." Whitehead also has a day job. He trains police officers around the United States. The Idaho-based law enforcement consultant, so based there, don't know if that means he's from there, has taught at least 560 police officers and other public safety workers in 85 sessions in 12 states over the past 4 years. And it's quite interesting that with that Pride with the U-Haul truck and Patriot Front and the 31 people from Patriot Front who were in the U-Haul truck who were apparently intending to riot. They were, and I'll show this in another video, they were from all different states. So they're about 6 from Utah, about the same amount from Texas, probably about the same amount from Washington State. There were people from Missouri. I wouldn't like to say now without checking, but there were various different states. One was Idaho. Trying to think which other ones. I'd rather double check than get it wrong. So that's interesting that he's, I mean, not necessarily relevant, but potentially. A Washington State Training Commission in 2015 temporarily banned Whitehead from advertising courses on its website because of instructional materials that referred to a turban-wearing police officer as a towel head, which I know that's a term. Also, raghead has been used as well. It was used in sort of Afghanistan and Iraq. Know this because my son's dad was a Marine, and he went to Iraq. I'm just remembering which one it was he went to. And we weren't together at that time, and Other marketing literature touted Whitehead's deception detection technique that, among other things, teaches officers not to trust sexual assault claimants if they use the word "we" in referring to themselves and their assailant. The Commission was responding to a student complaint citing offensive slurs and blatant misogyny. Whitehead said in an interview that the Commission had given too much credence to one student's opinion and caused him to lose business. Since then, he said he's expanded the section of his course that caused that controversy, adding more pot-stirring material, including a slide that ridicules transgender people. Suspect is a gender-fluid assigned male at birth wearing non-gender specific clothing, born Caucasian but identifies as a mountain panda. Whitehead said such barbs are intended to push back against pressures on law enforcement to espouse left-wing views on gender or race. Whitehead is part of a trend in pushing a radical right political agenda to American police forces. He's one of 5 police trainers identified by Reuters whose political commentary on social media has echoed extremist opinions or who have public ties to far-right figures. They work for one or more of 35 training firms that advertised at least 10 police or public safety training sessions in 2021, according to a Reuters analysis of scheduling data from policetraining.net, the main site where local departments connect with trainers. The 5 trainers have aired views, including the belief in a vote-rigging conspiracy to unseat Trump in the 2020 election. One trainer attended Trump's January 6th rally at the US Capitol that devolved into a riot, injuring more than 100 police officers. 2 of the trainers have falsely asserted that prominent Democrats, including President Joe Biden, are paedophiles, a core tenet of the QAnon conspiracy theory. 4 have endorsed or posted records of their past interactions with far-right extremist figures, including prominent constitutional sheriff leader David Clark Jr. and Proud Boys leader Joe Biggs, who is being prosecuted for his involvement in the Capitol riots. Whitehead adheres to the constitutional sheriff philosophy, which holds that county sheriffs should ignore any law they find unconstitutional. That's the constitutional sheriff philosophy. The growing movement claims sheriffs are the supreme law enforcement authorities in their jurisdictions, more powerful even than the US president. A spokesperson for the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association disputed the characterisation of its views as extreme and said it was neither right nor left-wing. In interviews, Whitehead and the other 4 trainers also said their beliefs are neither extreme nor far-right. Some said posts that appeared to urge the overthrow of the US government were intended as humorous or figurative. They said they keep their politics separate from their training, which they said focused on officer safety. Whitehead was listed in a database of members of the Oath Keepers, a far-right anti-government group that was leaked in September by the non-profit Distributed Denial of Secrets, which says it aims to publish data in the public interest. The members list included some 15 other people who identified themselves as law enforcement trainers and dozens more who said they were retired officers or trainers or firearms instructors, according to a Reuters review of the data. The anti-government militia group focuses on recruiting police and military personnel, according to some experts who track extremism, and claims to have thousands of members. Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes was charged with seditious conspiracy. I do not know what seditious conspiracy is. Doesn't sound good. For his role in the January 6th Capitol riots, he has pleaded not guilty. Kelly Sorrell, an attorney for the Oath Keepers, who's called herself the group's acting president during Rhodes' pre-trial detention, did not respond to request for comment. Whitehead told Reuters he was an Oath Keeper for about a year in 2016-17 and continues to support its ideology of defending the Constitution. He said he filmed a promotional video at an event of a far-right militia, the real 3%ers, when Whitehead ran for sheriff of Kootenai County. That's where Coeur d'Alene is. So that's where Kaylee's family live. That's where Xana's mum lived. Ben Mogan, he's in Arizona now, isn't he? He praised the 3%ers who train for armed resistance of what they call a tyrannical US government as being all about community and also defending the Constitution. Private trainers work in an unregulated industry that largely has evaded the heightened scrutiny of US policing in recent years. It's dodgy though, isn't it? Because they're the ones training these men holding the guns. In recent years, in the wake of high-profile police killing of civilians, so they've evaded scrutiny during this time. Trainers like those identified by Reuters, a half dozen police training specialists say, highlight a lack of standards and oversight that allows instruction that can often exaggerate the threats that officers face, making them more likely to respond with excessive force in stressful situations. Thinking about the Brent Packer situation, was that ultimately excessive force? It's hard to know, isn't it? I read something about, and I can't remember what the term's called, but it's when basically there's like a SWAT team in a situation and they basically bring the situation to a conclusion quicker by taking action that, rather than de-escalating a situation, escalates it, and so that they have to eliminate the threat. I don't know how often that goes on, but it's gone on for sure. I don't think that's very hard to imagine either. US law enforcement officers receive far less initial training at police academies than their counterparts in comparable countries, said Aaron Sethi, a Georgetown University adjunct law professor and policing specialist. That opens immense commercial opportunities for private trainers to fill the void with ongoing training of active duty officers, often in a politicised manner that normalises biased policing against black people and other communities, he said. So, for example, transgender, possibly LGBTQ. I mean, possibly, I don't know that for sure. I'm speculating. Private trainers typically advertise their courses to police and sheriff's departments, who often pay for their officers to take them. But individuals can also seek out and pay for courses on their own to satisfy government or department requirements for ongoing training. God, blimmin' heck. The courses vary widely in content and in price. God, it's not very standardised, is it? From hundreds to thousands of dollars per attendee. That's worrying. State-based oversight institutions, often called peace officer standard and training agencies, set requirements for police training, such as the types of class and minimum teaching hours that officers must complete. But the institutions have little power in most states to influence course content or to set standards for private police trainers, in part due to budget constraints, said Randy Shrewsbury, a former police officer. He said unregulated police training unregulated police training is such a problem that in 2017 he founded the California-based Institution for Criminal Justice Training Reform. Some officers will subscribe to the extremist ideology of their trainers, Shrewsbury said, because they perceive trainers as having authority and credibility. Bad training is instilling bad behaviour, he added. Whitehead disputed the assertion that police trainers need more oversight, noting that many states review course material. That seems regulated to me, he said. Support for QAnon election conspiracies. So there's been support in social media of this QAnon election conspiracy theory. Kansas-based trainer Daryl Schenk teaches firearms classes through his own company as well as through the law enforcement division of the NRA, National Rifle Association, the leading US gun rights lobby. Excuse me. I always do this after I've had my dinner. Oh, it's not good timing. Schenk has voiced the belief that Democrats are paedophiles, called reports of violence during the US Capitol riots fake news, and declared the 2020 election illegitimate. But he stresses that his personal views do not affect his training. The NRA did not respond to a request for comment. That's all about the QAnon busyness. Texts with a Proud Boys leader. The lack of regulation gives individual trainers wide latitude to teach America's police officers whatever they see fit. For trainer Tim Kennedy, that means training in martial arts, sharpshooting and strength building. In 2020, Kennedy posted on Instagram a video of himself taking out trash in combat gear captioned, "When you want to boogaloo, but you still have a bunch of honeydews to do," referring to household chores. Honeydews, what? That was an apparent reference to the anti-government boogaloo movement, whose adherents anticipate and sometimes call for or train for a revolution toppling the federal government, or a second US civil war. Good God. 2 months later, Kennedy posted a photo of himself wearing a Hawaiian shirt and aiming a rifle. Hawaiian shirts are a trademark of the Boogaloo movement. The picture was captioned, "If you choose to be an a-hole, I picked out a special shirt for the occasion." Kennedy said in an interview that he does not support the Boogaloo movement. He said he loves Hawaiian shirts and owned many before they became a Boogaloo symbol. Kennedy's Twitter account shows that he has been an associate of Joe Biggs, a leading organiser of the right-wing Proud Boys group, who is being prosecuted for his role in the US Capitol riots. In Twitter post, Kennedy discussed going on motorcycle rides with Biggs, named Biggs as his interior secretary in an imaginary presidential cabinet, and posted screenshots of their text message conversation about an anticipated rally by Antifa, the loosely organised left-wing anti-fascism movement. "Going downtown to cause havoc," wrote Biggs. "Same, sounds like a date," Kennedy replied. So Biggs is pending trial. Kennedy told Reuters he believed Biggs had taken a radical turn and that he had not had any recent contact with him. He denied ever being friends with Biggs. Kennedy said he held about 200 training sessions across the United States in 2021. He offers individual officers a discount on his courses, which cost between $400 and $900 per student, because most police agencies refused to pay for Kennedy's training out of what he described as political reasons and ignorance, in inverted commas. Kennedy said his courses focus on cultural understanding and de-escalation techniques as well as physical training. One teaching method he cited, however, was a chart of different mental states, each assigned its own colour, describing levels of preparedness or the lack of it to respond to threatening situations. The chart was developed by former US Marine Colonel Jeff Cooper, now deceased, as a means of setting one's mind into the proper condition when exercising lethal violence, according to a 2004 written commentary attributed to Cooper. Kennedy features a fighting practice in an instructional video showing him and students wrestling and trying to tackle one another. He described the practice as a form of stress inoculation that aims to improve officers' performance under pressure. The point of that is to induce stress onto a person, and then we make them try to solve a problem, such as intervening in a simulated mugging, he said. Such training is needed, Kennedy said, because officers are at unprecedented risk of death and assault. Police reform measures taken in the wake of the 2020 racial justice protests across the United States have left them even less protected, he said. But long-term data on police officers' deaths shows a different trend. Officer deaths caused by felonies last year increased to 73 compared to an average of 49 in the previous 4 years. But 2021 was an anomaly as crime surged amid the coronavirus pandemic and related economic turmoil. Over the long term, police deaths per 100,000 officers from both felonies and accidents plunged from 81 to 20 between 1970 and 2016, a decline of 75%, according to a 2019 analysis of historical FBI data. Deaths from crimes fell even faster than accidental deaths over the period. The number of line of duty deaths has declined dramatically over the last 5 decades. The study concluded the war on cops thesis is not supported by any evidence. Kennedy disputed the FBI data and said he would send figures contradicting it. He never did. The FBI declined to comment on the study of officer deaths and on the police trainers identified by Reuters. Reuters. Is it Reuters or Reuters? Am I pronouncing it wrong? Do tell me in the comments. I feel like I might have been pronouncing it wrong. Reuters. That sounds wrong as well. In light of such data showing declining, I think I've read Reuters or Reuters things many times, but I've never read it out loud. And now I'm reading out loud. I'm like, obviously thinking about it. I'm sure I must have heard it on something. In light of such data showing declining dangers to officers, this is very. I think you get the drift here. All right. I'm going to duck out for a minute, and I might be back with more, but I just want to find the meat in there. Oh, we're back to Richard Whitehead, or maybe we'll read about him because that's related to Idaho. So Richard Whitehead, the Idaho consultant, started his training firm in 1995 during his 25-year career in the Sheriff's Department of Travis County, Texas. He moved to Idaho and in 2020 ran for sheriff of Kootenai County. During his campaign, he handed out cards identifying himself as an oath keeper. He ran on a constitutional sheriff platform, he said in an interview. Whitehead lost in the primary. Adherents to the constitutional sheriff's movement consider the federal government a grave threat to US citizens, the feds. They argue that local law enforcement is a higher authority with the power to countermand the decisions of legislators, courts and presidents. Ooh, a law unto themselves. There's a new sheriff in town, except there wasn't. They have advocated that sheriffs refuse to uphold certain laws involving, for instance, background checks of gun buyers. Bring on the school shootings, yay. I mean, sorry, that's obviously not serious. Do not misquote or misunderstand. But you are asking for trouble, aren't you? If you don't want to do any background checks. Whitehead said he campaigned for sheriff because he wanted to block the government from imposing unconstitutional limits on citizens, including pandemic safety regulations such as mask mandates or business restrictions. It's a controversial one, that, isn't it? Some feel it went too far. I mean, I saw a woman arrested in a playground. I'm sure you must have seen that video in Idaho, arrested by police in a playground. I mean, it was just ridiculous, and not just ridiculous. I don't know what word to use. It's shocking. It's worrying. It's exceptionally concerning. I mean, we've had a police officer over here during COVID who arrested a young woman for saying that she had disobeyed COVID restrictions, handcuffed her, took her in his car, raped and killed her. So I think British trust in the police is quite low at the moment, and it doesn't help when you have, more things happening. And all anybody wants is to be safe. I'm not against police. My uncle's recently retired police officer. My great uncle was a police officer. I actually applied for the police force, but then I was a teacher at the time. I was thinking about coming out of teaching. I'd applied for the police force. I was in gone through one stage of it, and my next thing was doing the fitness test, and then I got offered this teaching job, and I had to make a decision. There were a lot of different things, and in the end, I decided to take the teaching job. So I never did enter the police, but I'm not against the police, but I am against the police thinking they're a law unto themselves, and I'm against any dodginess. And I'm sure most police officers are as well, because it gives them a bad name. I think I'm just going to leave that. Hold on, I'm just going to read this a little bit more about Idaho, and then I'm going to leave it there. Whitehead primarily trains police officers. He also advises a range of other public safety workers, including dispatchers, jailers, and paramedics. At a paramedic training in Sandpoint, Idaho, in April 2020, he put on an appalling show, according to Lieutenant David Ramsey, who described the event in an email to his supervisor 2 days after the class. Reuters, I can't decide, obtained the email in a public records request. So here we go. Ramsey wrote that Whitehead dismissed the COVID-19 pandemic as a joke, called infection control measures unconstitutional, and showed a video mocking women for not saying what they mean. After showing students an image of a police car with an LGBTQ flag on the side, according to Ramsey's email, Whitehead asked the class, "What's next? We have to have a Muslim flag to satisfy the goat." Oh my God. I think you can read that bit for yourself. Jeez. Wow. Yeah, he was only warming up, wasn't he? With his, you kind of think, oh, well, yeah, with sexist jokes, or, well, don't be a snowflake. And then it just ramps up. What's next? Oh, my God. Go effers. Seriously. Whitehead said he was not aware of Ramsey's complaint. He said he stood by his views that putting an LGBTQ flag on a police car could create a slippery slope that drags law enforcement officers away from their mission of fighting crime. He denied making the comment about a Muslim flag. Oh, this is Spokane, so let's hear what about Ozzy Knezovich. I'm going to say Knezovich. Ozzy Knezovich is the sheriff in Spokane County, Washington, just across the state line from the Idaho County, where Whitehead ran for sheriff. He slammed Whitehead's ties to militias and the constitutional sheriff's movement during his campaign, but Knezovich never realised until he was contacted by Reuters, I'm going to alternate, so I'll get half right, that Whitehead had been hired by the Spokane Sheriff's Office to run 15 deputy training classes, or training schedules maybe, since 2015. Knezevich, shocked that an instructor from the lunatic fringe had trained his own deputies, said he would ensure it didn't happen again. The sheriff said a now retired training coordinator had selected Whitehead. I'll be having a conversation with my training unit to take somebody off the list, the sheriff said. So Whitehead's gave a Reuters reporter permission to attend a training he gave last June for police officers in Killeen, Texas. In that class, Whitehead referred to COVID-19 as the China flu and mocked transgender people. God, he's a real delight, isn't he? He also blasted some states' efforts to end the qualified immunity legal doctrine that gives officers broad protection from civil lawsuits when they injure or kill suspects. If qualified immunity goes away, that takes away your ability to make a mistake, he said, or to I won't finish what I was going to say there. I need to Mirandaise myself before I speak on these things. In an interview after the session, Whitehead said his class was about teaching officers bulletproof methods of documenting incidents on the job and not becoming susceptible to the winds of political correctness and appeasement. That is the end of that. That's a bit of an abrupt ending. I wonder if he's still training people. Wow, there we go. I wonder when he moved to Idaho. It said 2020. It sounded like it was about around 2020. So I wonder if that's... Yeah, in April 2020. Well, that's when he... hold on, bear with. He moved to Idaho, and in 2020, that's when he ran for sheriff, of Kootenai County. But he didn't get in. I wonder how much sway he has and how many more Richard Whiteheads are around. Anyway, that's that. That's that info for you.